And she's been taking a look through them. And Amanda, an awful lot on the EU or UK-EU summit that we're expecting tomorrow, which you told us about a little bit earlier on. But you've picked out a few other really interesting stories. Front page of the Sunday Times, the suggestion that the Home Guard might be back.
Yes, so this is an extraordinary line that the Sunday Times have gleaned from the forthcoming Strategic Defence Review, which is being carried out by military leaders in conjunction with the Military of Defence to set out our priorities for military spending, which of course is increased given the threat of Russia over the next few years. And they're saying that there's going to be a Home Guard, which sounds a little bit like the Dad's Army style force we saw in World War II, of thousands of volunteers who would be recruited to protect areas of strategic infrastructure. So they've suggested power plants, airports, places where the internet and telephone cables make landfall, highlighting the kind of disruption that was caused by that big fire at Heathrow, for example, even though that's not thought to have been anything other than an accident, but just making the point that any attacks by terrorist groups or hostile states on our key infrastructure would be very, very damaging. They're also suggesting that there is a plan to increase the size of the army by several thousand troops, as well as expand the number of nuclear-powered submarines from 7 currently to 12 as well. So all of that is coming up later on this summer, but I think the idea of this kind of volunteer Home Guard force will definitely capture the imagination. Not sure it sends the most serious message, though.
Let's move on to, on the front page of the Sunday Telegraph again, the EU reset is their main story, but there's an interesting side column as well about pylons, Amanda. Talk us through what they're saying.
Yeah, so this has actually become quite a politically hot topic. So as part of the government's drive towards net zero by 2030, big expansion on onshore and offshore wind turbines, for example, the government say they need to have a big expansion in the number of overhead and undersea power cables, which is something that Reform have been campaigning about. They say will lead to a spider's web of electricity cables covering the country. And now the Telegraph are reporting that Ed Miliband, the Secretary of State, has actually asked for the electricity regulators to look at whether actually the number of cables could be reduced if instead of having a national system of power being sent from one side of the country to the other, it could be broken up into regional areas so you don't have to send the electricity as far away, but it does mean that the costs would also be reflected on if you're somewhere where there's a lot of wind turbines, for example, then you might have cheaper electricity, but obviously you'd have more cables. So that potentially could save billions of pounds and also reduce the need for so many unsightly cables.
Interesting stuff. Well, it's interesting to see where that goes. And as you say, people feel strongly about pylons, don't they? Poundland, selling for £1. I think this is in the Express.
It is. Many of the papers pick this up. Yes, apparently Poundland, despite the cost of living crisis, is in big trouble, apparently, and it's looking to be sold, and only for £1. Apparently that's because of the cost of the restructuring. It's actually huge. It's got 825 stores, employs 15,000 people, so many of them will be very worried, but that's been put up for sale, potentially.
I think we've got time to have a look at Lauren Sanchez's handbag. I think it's got to be done, hasn't it? I mean, it's important stuff. I don't even know what paper it's in.
Yes, this is in the Mail. Lots of the papers picked up on it. Yeah, £4,500 handbag. Would you fork out for that? It's shaped like,
in a word,
the Eiffel Tower. So I'm not sure quite how much you're going to fit into it. It's covered in jewels, though, and it is appropriate because she's having a hen do in Paris with Eva Longoria, Katy Perry, and Kim Kardashian. But it's not just the handbag, which is she's pushed the boat out for. The entire cost of the hen do is £500,000, apparently. But it does sound like they're having a lovely time going down the Seine, drinking champagne, and actually it's dwarfed by the cost of the wedding, which is set to be $50 million.
Yeah, it's another world, isn't it, Amanda?
Wife of Amazon founder. I mean, I guess they've got a bit of money in the account.
We'll see you again in the next hour. We're out of time. Top stories up next.
We arrive